It's only Tuesday. Feels like Friday. It's only Tuesday. Holidays really screwed me up. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Did you hear the radio show yesterday? I had no idea what day it was. I thought it was Tuesday yesterday. It's going to take me a while to get back in sync after all of the holiday fa-la-laing that we did. I was raised to respect authority and to be polite, more or less. And the older that I've gotten, as things have evolved and I've had more experience in the real world, I am more and more of the opinion that in polite society it is appropriate to be polite most of the time, at least for your initial blush of interaction with another human being. But I am of the opinion now that respect must be earned. Respect must be earned. We're going to give people the benefit of the doubt initially up front, but really in order for me to respect somebody, they have to show me the money. They have to prove it with their actions. They have to be respectful in order for me to respect them. Now, it's a free world, more or less. You can navigate your life however you want to, but when it comes to interacting with any medical professional, my advice is withhold your respect until they deliver or service to you, which is which makes them respectable. They have to prove to you that they are upright, upstanding, forthright individuals who are worthy of your respect. One of the problems that we have here is we have been culturally conditioned just to respect the MD, because we think we've been socialized into thinking that they're smarter than we are, that they're much more intelligent than we are, and that they've got our backs. Well, in point of fact, they don't. Your medical doctor doesn't know what's best for you. They only know what they've been trained in, and they are a cog in a wheel of a for-profit, monopolistic medical system run by the pharmaceutical industry. And remember, it's not the drug, it's how it's used. It's not the gun, it's how it's used. I'm not bashing drugs. I'm bashing a monopolistic medical system which has consistently failed to deliver anything of merit except in the surgical theater and a handful of infectious diseases. Now, from the proper perspective, everything makes sense, and I've been tooting this horn for 2.5 years now. I'm going to continue to toot it because nobody gets it. More and more people are getting it the more that I say it, and it's important to keep saying it until this just becomes an accepted social norm. For goodness sake, the philosophy of medicine that your MD is trained in, the philosophy of medicine that your nurse is trained in, the philosophy of medicine that every single solitary MD in the world is trained in. It does not matter where they went to school. It does not matter what their specialty is. It does not matter how many initials they have after their name or how high in the pecking order of the medical industry they are or how low in the pecking order of the medical industry they are. They have all been trained in the same philosophy. Every Catholic in the world is trained in the same philosophy. Every Jew in the world is trained in the same philosophy. Every Hindu, every Buddhist are trained in the same philosophy. The philosophy of medicine that MDs bring to the table is based on the notion that the human body does not know how to fix itself, that the human body is a random amalgamation of biochemicals which break down all of the time because it's just an imperfect system. And it's the doctor's job to march in and manage your symptoms with drugs or surgery. Most times of which are prescribed not to cure anything, but just to simply manage the problem. So heartburn doesn't get cured. Arthritis doesn't get cured. High blood pressure doesn't get cured, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if I'm correct in my perspective on the MDs, then there must be evidence to support this notion. Well, while we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine in the United States, they're the leading cause of death and the leading cause of bankruptcy. While we've been under their tutelage, Alzheimer's has skyrocketed, autism has skyrocketed, high blood pressure has skyrocketed. We're not even near a cure for cancer. Don't even get me started on cancer. Our lives are going to hell in a handbasket because we've taken the wrong dog to the hunt. And, as an example, a further example of why the MD's philosophy of medicine is lopsided and should not immediately be deserving of your respect. Breaking news out of New York. I quote, depending on how things turn out, advice on treating hypertension, that's high blood pressure, is about to get a whole lot simpler or a heck of a lot more contentious. Heartwire has learned that the American Society of Hypertension, which released its own hypertension guidelines last month, in conjunction with the International Society of Hypertension, is now collaborating with the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology on yet another set of guidelines. ASH President Dr. William B. White told Heartwire that the ASH, the American Society of Hypertension, will be signing on as an equal partner. Optimistically, he says the new guidelines will be out at the end of 2014 or early 2015. So it's going to take them an entire year to reach a consensus about what really constitutes high blood pressure and how to treat it. After a decade of waiting for updated hypertension guidelines, cardiologists and primary care physicians found themselves reeling from a hypertension guideline glut that peaked at the end of 2013. The European Society of Hypertension had released new guidelines in June. Then in late December, a majority of members from the original 8th Joint National Commission published guidelines in the Journal of the American Medical Association just hours after the other people announced they'd released their own guidelines. As reported by Heartwire, the 2 December documents contained important points of disagreement. For one, the start treatment threshold of 150/90 applies to patients 80 years or older in the ASH guidelines, but to patients 60 years or older in the JNC document, and so forth and so on. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but the simple fact of the matter is that the people that you pay hard-earned money in medical insurance premiums every month to gain access to, supposedly the smartest people in the bunch, the smartest people in the room, aren't they supposed to be? The MD? The most respectful people in the world, the people worthy of your genuflection, can't agree amongst themselves for a decade on what constitutes high blood pressure. There's disagreement amongst them. Why is there disagreement amongst them? Because their foundation philosophy of pathophysiology is incorrect. It is a house of cards built on shifting sands. They change their position all of the time. Oh, first it's, you got to bleed somebody when they're sick. That's how you got to cure them. You have to release the evil tumors from their body. That's why the major medical journal in the world is called The Lancet. Because for hundreds of years that was the main tool of the MD, the Lancet. They just open up a vein, open up an artery, let the evil humors out, and that's what's going to cure you. And then they started using leeches instead, and then they abandoned those ideas. And then they told you that thalidomide was an okay thing to put in vaccinations. And then they told you that Premarin, taking horse hormone into your body, was a really good thing. And then they told you that Vioxx was a really good thing. And then they told you that your cholesterol number should be this. And then they changed it, and then they changed it again, and now they're changing it again. Now what they're doing with cholesterol numbers is saying, oh, sorry, we were wrong. It doesn't really matter. And we still continue to look up to them. We still continue to pay hard-earned money for the privilege of their point of view. And it's nonsense. I mean, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Every day there's a new news story. But nobody is looking at it from this perspective. Everybody is thinking, it's just in-house, infighting, one-upmanship, and the Europeans want to get one over on the Americans, and the cardiologists really are the people to go to here because that's their specialty, and you shouldn't listen to anybody else, and it's not that at all. The medical system does not need to be regulated. It does not need to be tweaked. It does not need to be massaged. It needs to be abandoned. because the philosophy of medicine that every single solitary MD in the world is trained in is incorrect. They've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They do not recognize that the human body has a divine center. They do not recognize that the human body has built-in God-given intelligence. They do not recognize that the human body has a wonderful, marvelous, remarkable ability to fix itself and maintain itself and, for instance, grow itself. They do not understand this. And so their treatments are designed not to assist the body, but to overpower the body and outwit the body. Their therapeutics are like a hostile takeover of the metabolism of the body. That's what they do. They're not interested in understanding the cause of arthritis. They're just interested in generating medicines which suppress the symptoms of the arthritic condition. They're not interested in coming to a conclusion about the cause of cancer. They're just interested in developing very toxic chemicals that destroy cancer cells and everything else into the bargain. It is an insane point of view which must be held up to the light of reason. But because they monopolize the medical theater, nobody questions what they do, except me. And I learned it from Dr. Wallach. Well, Dr. Wallach was the first one to openly question these people. And I am happy to be standing on his shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, the single most important thing you can do to secure your health moving forward is fire your MD. Hook up with someone in longevity and let them show you the wonders of science-based, clinically verified, foundation medical nutrition support programs delivered by Longevity and Longevity distributors worldwide. I'm Dr. Peter Glidden. Stick around. We're going to go to Virginia and speak to James when we come back. Today is Tuesday, the 7th of January, 2014. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. A shout out to my would-be erstwhile guest host, Mike Phillip. Arguably the funniest man in Canada. One more thing about this hypertension thing that I want to point out because it's important. Now, at the end of last year, there were two conflicting documents that were published concerning the new guidelines, quote unquote, for hypertension, right? And they contradicted each other. They contradicted each other, and they stirred up all of this hullabaloo, so much so that the medical community is now coming together and trying to save face by saying, oh, we're all going to collaborate, everybody now, and we're going to have new guidelines for you, right? Well, guess what? 3 of the people who wrote the guidelines that were so contentious at the end of last year wrote them for each medical journal. They wrote them for each medical journal. Dr. Sandra Taylor, Raymond Townsend, and Barry Carter. It's clear that hypertension experts themselves are not sure to what make of the evidence or lack thereof, they say in Medscape. 3 of the authors of the JNCH JAMA guidelines were also the authors of the ASH/ISH guidelines. Oh my God! So on Monday they wake up and they say, well, this is what constitutes high blood pressure values. And then on Tuesday they say, well, guess what? We were wrong. It's different. And these are the people that we trust. This is the brain trust that is in charge of the delivery of your health care. And it's not health care. It's disease management. Run by people who are not the brightest bulbs in the bunch. And you know, in the wonderful world of academia, honestly, in academic circles, I don't know if there are any academicians in the listening audience, but if there are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In academia, it's all about who published what, where, and when. It's all about getting published. It's all about getting your name out there. It's all about having journal articles with your name on them. It's all about having a new disease named after you. That's what it's all about. It's all about this intellectual, egoistic stuff. And these people have no shame. Because on the one hand, they say it should be left. And on the other hand, they say it should be right. and they publish those directions in 2 different medical journals within the same month. And nobody goes to jail. There's no hand slapping. There's no wrist slapping. There's no, outrage, public outrage. There's chuckling amongst academics, behind closed doors in academic circles, but nobody's going to criticize their colleagues. That never happens. It's like the blue line, the cops' blue line. They're never going to turn in any one of their colleagues, even though they're dirty cops. Don't even get me started on dirty cops. But, they're not going to do that just because they don't do that. The MDs don't do that either. They do not eat their own. They never do. And this is a problem because nobody's held accountable for what they do or what they don't do in the wonderful world of MD-directed allopathic reductionistic pharmaceutical centrist medicine. Say that 10 times fast. Remember, your medical doctor may be the sweetest, nicest, kindest human being in the world. They might work for Doctors Without Borders for free. They might donate time at the local soup kitchen. They might treat patients for free the first Friday of every month. I used to do that. They might be really upstanding human beings, and they are indoctrinated into the allopathic reductionistic pharmaceutical centrist medical model. They cannot see things any other way than through those particular lenses. And those particular lenses have left out some major data points. The lenses that the MD is trained to view human pathology, disease, and health through are colored. But they don't know that they're colored. My favorite way of explaining this is your medical doctor, by virtue of their education, have become like colorblind art critics who don't know they're colorblind. Now, if you had a colorblind art critic that didn't know he was colorblind or she was colorblind, their criticism of the art would be a little off every time because they can't see the colors. Everybody else can, but they can't. And so their criticism is going to be biased before the fact, which in Latin is called a priori. Before the fact, they have an a priori built-in intellectual bias that they are completely blind to. And because of this blindness, they change their minds all of the time. Their therapeutics, their philosophy are based on shifting sands of unreality and moved forward mostly by money. Ladies and gentlemen, fire your MD. Stop the madness. Call us instead. We really are going to talk to James next. Stick around. Everybody, welcome back. Dr. Peter Glidden here, pulling back the curtain on the insane way that medicine is delivered here in the not-so-free world. The more you understand about the nonsensical view that the MDs are trained in, the more you become horrified. As God is my witness, fire your medical doctor now. Let's go to Virginia, see what James is up to. Hey, James, thanks for the phone call. You are live.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, James, you're live. What can I do for you? Thanks for calling.
Well, I had to call because I'm going blind, and I can't see I can't see nothing hardly.
Yeah, that's not good, James. How old are you, buddy? How old are you?
I'm 73.
Yeah. So, how'd you find out about us?
My helper, Mr. I can't think of his name, Mr.
Yeah, so somebody who's helping you around the house.
He's tell him your name. He's on the other end.
Cleveland.
At Cleveland. All right, now we know what's happening. It's Cleveland. You're in good hands with Cleveland. Let me tell you something. So, listen, James, from our point of view, our position is that the human body is endowed with a God-given ability to regulate, maintain, and fix itself, right? Your body is so smart, It grew itself all by itself from a tiny little single cell into you. It did that all by itself. Your body does millions of things every day without your conscious control. Your medical doctor is blind to this phenomenon, and your medical doctor thinks that once you're sick, you're screwed. That's just the way that it is, and there ain't no fixing nothing. Now, sometimes we can fix it, and sometimes we can't. Sometimes we can fix it all the way. Sometimes we fix it 80%, 50%, 20%. I have no idea, and I'm not making false claims. I've seen lots of people who were legally blind. They follow our advice, and they're no longer legally blind. So what we do is counsel people on what to do to support and promote the body's ability, in your case, to have healthy eyes. So that's, all you got to do is start taking care of your eyes a little bit better, keep your fingers crossed, and see what happens, man, right? So now Cleveland can tell you we have a two-step process here, James, 2 steps. The first step is you have to stop eating certain foods. There are 10 foods which, if you continue to eat them on a regular basis, they will hurt your eye. They will hurt your nose, your ears, your mouth, your throat, your joints, your heart, your kidneys, your liver, everything. It's like putting diesel fuel into an unleaded engine. That ain't good. It's going to gum up the works. Well, there are certain foods that are gumming up the works, and you need to stop eating them immediately. Cleveland can tell you what they are. Number 1, stop eating the 10 bad foods. Number 2, there's only 10 of these foods. Number 2, you have to start to give your body the nutrients, the raw materials that it needs in order to have healthy eyes. Number 3, keep your fingers crossed. Give the program some time. See what happens. So the recommendation for you, how much do you weigh, James?
I weigh 248 pounds.
All right, so here's what I would do every month. I would do 2 anti-aging healthy start packs. Is Cleveland writing this down for you?
I think so.
Yes.
All right, Cleveland. 2 anti-aging healthy start packs. 4 bottles of selenium. And 1 bottle of Ultimate Daily capsules. Now, if that's too expensive for your budget, James, I have no idea what your budget is. Do 1 anti-aging healthy start pack. 4 selenium and 1 bottle of Ultimate Daily capsules. 1 bottle of Ultimate Daily capsules. Plus, I want you to start drinking things like green tea. And if you drink alcohol, I want you to drink red wine. No more white wine. I only want you to drink. All right, good, even better. I want you to start using cinnamon and red pepper and curry powder. Curry powder, delicious. I want you to start eating food cooked in curry powder. I want you to use red pepper. I want you to start salting your food, putting salt on your food so that it tastes good. Now, Cleveland will be able to fill in the blanks here for you, but basically our message here is that we have protocols, health recovery protocols, which have been developed by licensed physicians and delivered by licensed physicians who are trained in medical nutrition. There's only a handful of us in the whole world, man. We're like a brand new species of human being. There's only a handful of us in the world that know this, which is why we have radio shows and why we're getting in front of the public at every opportunity that we can to show people the wisdom of, helping their bodies to help themselves. So Cleveland can hook you up with this. Change your diet. Take the nutritional supplements. Give it 3 months before you judge it up or down, and then call me back with a report and let me know how it goes. Thanks for the phone call, James. I have to move on. All right. From James to Greg. Looks like we're going across country today. Greg in California is calling with a question, I think, about tonsils. Hey, Greg, thanks for the phone call. You are live.
Hi. Yeah, I've got a 5-year-old son who, for the past 3 years, has suffered with ear infection. Yeah. And so what the doctor did about 3 years ago is they put ear tubes.
Yeah.
And that seemed to take care of it for a while. And then they fell out about 6 months ago. And he's having ear infections. So we take him back to the same doctor. and now he wants to remove his adenoids and his tonsils.
Oh, my God.
So I figured there's something going wrong there, and something is attacking the body, and they just want to, pull everything out that's bad. That's a bad result from whatever is causing it.
Well, they want to pull everything out because they believe that the body is an imperfect machine and that, you don't need your tonsils, you don't need your adenoids, you don't need your gallbladder, you don't need your appendix, you don't need your breast, you don't need your knee, you don't need your heart, right? You only need one kidney.
That's exactly what he said. You don't need your adenoids, you don't need your tonsils.
It's nonsense, right? And now, if adenoids or tonsils were the cause of chronic ear infections, then everybody in the world would have chronic ear infections. And they don't. Number one. Number two, the tubes that he put in the ear didn't fix the problem. It just managed the problem. That's all that it did, was manage the problem. It's like painting over the mold in the basement. So let me tell you how this works, right? Behind the eardrum, there's a little chamber in your ear. It's called the middle ear. Behind the middle ear, there's another eardrum. There's another eardrum, and it's not called the eardrum, but it's a little bit bigger than the first eardrum. And then there's another chamber behind that. That's called the inner ear. Well, the chamber directly behind your eardrum has a little tube that drains it, and that tube goes into the bottom of the throat. It's called the eustachian tube. And when everything is right, the eustachian tube drains the fluid that naturally builds up behind the eardrum because it's a moist, mucousy environment, and the human body is constantly secreting stuff in there to keep everything lubricated and healthy. It's a really smart mechanism, but it all hinges upon the patency and the health of the eustachian tube. Now, if the eustachian tube gets clogged up for whatever reason, the natural fluid that the ear creates can't drain out. So fluid builds up and creates pressure and pain. And then, it's 98.6 degrees back there, and 98.6 Fahrenheit, and moist and dark. And so...
And it grows bacteria, yeah.
If stuff isn't draining, it grows bacteria. That's right. And that's not because you have an eardrum. It's not because you have a middle ear that you're growing bacteria. It's because something ain't right. And what ain't right is the eustachian tube isn't draining correctly. Well, why isn't the eustachian tube draining correctly? 99 times out of 100, it's because of an allergic reaction to a food that the child is eating. 99. I just made that number up. 99% of the time, it's caused by a food that the child is eating. It's kind of like it's a bad metaphor. It's not a good metaphor, man. It's kind of sort of good, but it's a different type of an allergic reaction. But you've seen some kids or even adults that have like a peanut allergy, right?
Sure.
And they'll eat a peanut and their airways start to constrict and they can't breathe, right? Because the airway gets inflamed because of an allergic reaction. Well, the same thing happens to the eustachian tube, but it's a different type of an allergic reaction. It's not an immediate hypersensitivity reaction that causes your airways to jam up from peanuts. This is a delayed hypersensitivity food allergy, and it's a different animal. It's like comparing a tabby cat to a mountain lion. They're both cats, but they're different. So the biggest food culprit here is anything made from cow's milk. Milk, cheese, yogurt, butter, sour cream, ice cream. Now, there may be other foods that are also problematic, but I'm telling you, man, most of the time, this is a simple reaction to cow's milk or something made from cow's milk. So the first, second, and third thing to do for this child is to just remove, like his freaking life depended on it, everything made from milk from his diet. I don't even want him to eat cake if milk has been put into the bladder, right? Or pancakes if milk has been put into the bladder. He gets no milk, zero. Zero tolerance, no milk, zero. No yogurt, no ice cream, no sour cream, no butter, nada for 90 days.
Okay.
90 days. Now, how much does he weigh?
43 pounds.
All right, good. So our basic fundamental position here is that the human body, in order for it to work the way that nature intended it to, needs 90 essential nutrients every day. There are 90 essential nutrients that have to go down the hatch every day because the body can't make them. They have to be imported. Things like vitamin A and vitamin B and vitamin C and calcium and magnesium and phosphorus and taurine, and there's 90 essential nutrients that have to go down the hatch. But the nutrients aren't in the food. Some of them are, but they're not all there. They're just not. So the same way that you have to brush your teeth and you have to wash your face and you have to take a shower and you have to put clothes on to protect yourself from the elements, you have to take nutritional supplements into your body every day to optimize its function, period. It's a rule that's been overlooked, and it's killing everybody because they're not doing it. So you, me, your child, your wife, your mother, your mother-in-law, everybody in the family, everybody in the world needs to take 90 essential nutrients appropriate for their body weight every day. Now, we've dialed that in. My colleague, Dr. Wallach, after $25 million of federally funded research, figured out how to do that in a way that's extremely effective. And so the recommendation for your son is one healthy start pack every other month. So he needs one healthy start pack, and that will last him 2 months. So get one healthy start pack and talk to the person who told you about this radio show. They'll tell you how to give it to him. That's going to round things out nicely for him, eliminate dairy, and watch the earaches disappear.
Excellent.
Thanks for calling, Greg. Did you know you have 2 eardrums? Yeah, most people don't. Well, I tell you what, knowledge is power. It's remarkable to me that the MDs can take this ridiculous stance. Oh, you got a chronic sore throat because you have a throat. Well, no, you don't. You're an idiot. Get lost. Stop telling me what you think you know because you don't. I had a argument with an MD once. For some reason, I was playing golf with this guy, and he was an MD. And, after golf, he found out what I did, and so he wanted to quiz me. And I let him. And he said, "So, Dr. Glidden, what's the cause of chronic ear infections in children?" And I told him what I just told the listening audience, and he said, No, it's not. He said, "It's crooked eustachian tubes. That's what it is. It's a crooked eustachian tube." And no, it's not. If it was crooked eustachian tubes, then every Down syndrome child in the world would have earaches all the time, because their eustachian tubes are all crooked because of the genetic malfunction, the genetic, misfiring that caused them to have Down syndrome. But, people get, and this guy was like pounding his fist on the table, and he was adamant, and he's wrong. That's just the way that it is. We're not talking about opinion here. We're not talking about, political opinion. Right? We're not talking about religious opinion. We're talking about scientific facts, period. This stuff is unarguable. But the MDs turn a blind eye to it, because if you've invested 16 years of your life and, a couple of $100,000, and you've surrounded yourself for 16 years by people who have also been indoctrinated into the same methodology, you're going to come out of that meat grinder thinking how you think, and ain't nobody going to change that. Which is why Max Planck, one of my favorite physicists of all time, said, he's very outspoken. Wonder why I like him so much. He said that medicine progresses, science progresses one funeral at a time, which means that scientists, medical professionals, yours truly excluded, Dr. Wallach excluded, are the most closed-minded people in the world. The PhD program was designed not to open people's minds, but to close them to one particular way of thinking. That's why when you get your PhD degree, you have to, in order to get your PhD, you have to sit in front of 4 people who already got their PhD. And your paper that you had to write, your PhD dissertation that you had to write in order to become a PhD, might be the most breathtakingly awesome academic thing ever written, and completely 100% spot on. But if it is not consistent with their point of view, it's rejected. The PhD program and doctoral degree granting programs were not developed to broaden people's minds. They were developed to create an army of people who think the same way. And that's why even when the MD is faced with such abject, utter failures on their part, they turn a blind eye to it because they're intellectually cowardly and they don't have any social spine, and they're unwilling to handle the mental shock of admitting that they're wrong. They can't do it. They ain't never going to happen. It's never going to happen, which is why MDs who try to get their feet wet in holistic medicine are the most dangerous people in the world. Because, number one, if they really understood what was going on with medicine, and if they really wanted to branch out into another profession, they would abandon their medical license. Because it's ineffective, it doesn't work, they would abandon it and adopt a new approach. But instead of abandoning it, they have one foot in both worlds. It's like trying to be a Hindu and a Catholic at the same time. You can't do it. It's like trying to be a communist and a Democrat at the same time. You can't do it. But this is what the MDs do who practice integrative medicine. They are the most dangerous medical practitioners in the world because they really don't have a clue as to what's going on. If they did, they would have abandoned their point of view and adopted a new one. But instead, they adulterate the new point of view with their old point of view and make this weird hybrid mix that is neither one nor the other. And they sell it to you like it's the newest thing in the world and the greatest invention since the sterile technique. It's nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. Call a spade a spade. Why don't you? We can do it in polite company. 2 + 2 does not equal 5. If you tell me that it does, guess what? You are wrong. Thanks for tuning in and turning on. Second hour coming up at 6 after the hour. We're going to go straight to Arizona and talk to Amber. Stick around.